Hey there folks, John here for Biddy Kong's Quest, and today I wanted to come at you with another trailer breakdown because it seems like you guys really enjoyed those when I did those a couple weeks ago for the Mario Kart World trailer and then also for the Metroid Prime 4 trailer. Just to give a little bit of context, I am a professional editor. I have been editing for over 20 years. I edit trailers and movies and documentaries. And I've noticed over the past, couple months of looking at trailers that Nintendo has made that Nintendo's trailers and really just trailers in general for games have a lot in common with the trailers that I end up cutting for movies and those sorts of things. So I've started a series of videos where I start breaking down trailers and kind of figuring out how do these things work? How do they actually market things? Are they doing a good job of it? In the case of the Metroid Prime 4 one, I determined that no, they weren't doing a good job of it, and then it ended up recutting the trailer. In the Mario Kart World one, we broke it down and figured out, you know what, that one actually did a pretty good job. Now, the one that we're addressing today is a little bit unique just because you don't often see software like this get a trailer, and that is the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour app. Now, the weird thing about this one is that it's less of a game and more of something just to kind of get you familiar with the system, kind of like they did with Astro for the PS5, although in this case, it's a little bit more informational rather than gameplay focused, whereas Astro did a lot of gameplay platforming, very traditional game stuff. This one is not that way. It's more of something just to kind of familiarize you with the system, with some tech demos and mini games and that sort of thing. I honestly think they probably made a trailer for it just so that people would buy it because it was $10 and a lot of people expected it to be free. But that said, it is an interesting trailer and I wanted to do a video on it because you don't see trailers for stuff like this very often. So we're going to go through and we're going to analyze what makes this thing tick, what makes this trailer work or not work, and kind of figure out what is it that Nintendo's trying to do here. And I have noticed that Nintendo does follow a very specific formula, specifically with their overview trailers, that's a little bit different. So we're going to talk about that too. So that's about it. We're going to get into this trailer. So here we go.
Introducing a brand new interactive exhibit full of facts and secrets about the Nintendo Switch 2 system. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour.
Okay, so let's start there. So with any trailer, you usually get what's called the open, which is kind of just a general overview, kind of teaser that gets the audience engaged and interested. And I think this does a pretty good job of that. So we're going to go to the beginning, and you see a lot of motion here, a lot of movement. You see these types of graphics coming in here. You see that starting to get built, and it's kind of giving that audience the idea of, okay, what am I looking at? Really, what a good teaser should do is it should establish a question in your audience's mind that we're going to try to answer then through the trailer. So this is pretty interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on. And obviously it's a Switch 2, we can see that, but what they're trying to do is saying, okay, this is the Switch 2, these are all the different components of the Switch 2. What you're about to see is going to involve all of this stuff, which, as the audience member, I see a Switch 2, I see something familiar. You want to give your audience something familiar that they're used to seeing, and at this point you probably know what a Switch 2 looks like. And then you want to introduce new information, and that new information is all these little scaffoldings and elevators and all this other stuff, which then asks the question, okay, what is all that other stuff that I don't recognize? And that's generally what we're doing here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. We'll keep going.
Introducing a brand new interactive exhibit full of facts and secrets about the Nintendo Switch 2 system.
Okay, so what is this? This looks kind of like a museum exhibit. And you can even see they have a little expo center, and they kind of just are like, okay, this is an exhibit. It's all about the Switch and what Switch 2 and what it can do. And now I immediately know what I'm watching, but it doesn't answer all of my questions because I'm like, well, okay, then what can it do with all this stuff? I mean, this looks really complex. There's got to be a lot of stuff here. And so that's kind of how we're going to get started and we're going to get into it. So now I have the question in my mind, what is it all that the Switch 2 can do? And that's how this goes.
System, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. There are 12 total areas to explore. These include the console and dock, as well as accessories such as the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller. Let's take a look inside.
Okay, and now we're at the end of Act 1. Now, most trailers are broken into 3 acts. We have a 3-act structure, and that's generally how most movies are designed as well. And each of those acts basically revolves around a question or a statement of some kind. Act 1 is generally going to answer the question for the audience, what are we, or who are we? Well, that's pretty easy in this one, because if I come back here and I listen to what she says...
There are 12 total areas to explore. These include the console and dock, as well as accessories such as the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller. Let's take a look inside.
So we're establishing what's going on. There's 12 areas to explore. Let's take a look inside. Let's see what's going on. This is a very, very simple Act 1. Act 1 is usually the shortest act of all. But again, the idea behind Act 1 is we're just really trying to establish what is the purpose of this thing. Why are we here? You want to do that as quickly as humanly possible. And so this is, and I don't have a time code here, but I would say this is roughly 25 seconds or so into it. If you get past that in a trailer, generally you've lost your audience, and they're probably going to go somewhere else because it's not interesting enough. In trailer terms, if we're speaking about rules, and obviously rules are meant to be broken, this is a generally pretty good place to be at this point. So let's keep going.
The tour begins at the left Joy-Con 2 controller. We should explore the area to see what secrets we can find. Oh, something popped up. This is a stamp that tells you which part of the Switch 2 is nearby. The stamps may be hidden, but they pop up when you're close, so they shouldn't be too tricky to find. It looks like this display is moving.
Okay, so we're going to stop there and go back. So what do we do? Well, we introduced the concept of stamps. So if I come back here, so we start out Act 2 with a statement.
The tour begins at the left Joy-Con 2 controller.
So we're starting out with a statement that just basically is kind of our segue from Act 1, saying this is where the tour begins. It begins at the left Joy-Con controller. And then we immediately introduce secrets, and boom, we immediately see a secret. So this is establishing a question in your audience mind and then immediately providing them the answer that then leads to another question. Well, what is this? What is this secret that I just found? Well, she's about to say it's a stamp. So trailers and generally storytelling in general, you're just basically trying to posit questions in the audience's mind that you then answer, that then lead to other questions and kind of lead to this breadcrumb trail that ends up getting you to the end of your trailer. Now, this is an interesting one because this is kind of like a macro act structure that they use throughout Act 2, where they kind of keep coming back to the stamp idea. So imagine that if you've got a 3-act structure, the first act is who are we, or what are we? In this case, she's talking about, oh, these are stamps. The second act, which we're about to get into, should answer the question, well, what's the problem? Why are we here? And then the third act should be, well, what are we going to do about it? Or it's a call to action. Here's what you can do about it. So assuming that that's the case, this part of the stamps, Act 1 of the stamp idea, actually happens right here. And then you're going to see it's going to get interrupted, and we're going to go into the mini game section. So just watch how this goes, because it's going to say, oh, these are stamps. And then immediately it's kind of going to segue off of that and into something else.
Oh, something popped up. This is a stamp that tells you which part of the Switch 2 is nearby.
Again, this is a what are we?
The stamps may be hidden, but they pop up when you're close, so they shouldn't be too tricky to find.
And we're starting to get into the Act 2 of the stamps, which is what is the problem? Well, the problem is they're hidden. But then we kind of segue off of it and go into this thing.
Here, you can play a mini-game that uses mouse controls with the Joy-Con 2. The goal is to dodge as many of the spiky balls as you can. They'll eventually start pouring down the screen, making this a great way to practice mouse controls.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right here. So this is the minigame section. Now, what you notice about Nintendo's trailers is that even these little short segments that they have, again, this is an overview trailer thing, actually have a 3-act structure. This we just saw is Act 1 of the minigames. You're explaining what it is. She says, these are minigames, and then...
They'll eventually start pouring down the screen, making this a great way to practice mouse control.
This is a great way to practice mouse control. So now what we've established is these are minigames. This is what we've implemented in order for you to practice mouse controls, or on a larger level, the features of the Nintendo Switch 2. And so that's what we're going to do. As we're going to go through minigames, because now we know what they are. They are something that are here in order for you to practice with the console's features. That is the what question is now answered. So now we're done with Act 1 and we're about to go into Act 2.
You can earn up to 3 medals based on your score. The more you collect, the more minigames you'll unlock. So try to collect as many as you can. Check out some other minigames you can try.
Okay, so we're still in Act 2, but now we're explaining, well, okay, these are the minigames, these are what they're for. Well, what's the problem, or what are you going to do with this information? Well, there's a bunch of different minigames. It's not just one. They're going to show you, okay, these are all the different problems you can solve. These are all the different things that you can do with that information we just gave you.
There's a quiz game that challenges you to identify frame rates. A matching game that uses the stronger, more expressive HD Rumble 2. Even a game that has you shooting down balloons using mouse and stick controls. There are 20 minigames.
Okay, so that is our Act 2. What's the problem? We're specifying, okay, what can you do? Well, these are some specific minigames and some specific problems that they solve, meaning it teaches you how to use mouse and stick controls, or it teaches you about the new HD Rumble. These are, again, what you can do. So we're basically saying, hey, there's mini games that teach you about stuff. Now, Act 2, specifically, here's what that looks like. You've got to master all these mini games, or master the features of the system to get through all these mini games. And so that's the problem. And now, once we get through that...
Even a game that has you shooting down balloons using mouse and stick controls. There are 20 mini games.
We get to this.
Show off the features of Switch 2.
Okay, and now we get to Act 3, which is the call to action. Now, the call to action is basically saying, okay, now what are you going to do about it, player? We have mini games. They're there to teach you things. Here are some of the ones that we have, and these are some of the specific problems you're going to have to solve. Now, here's the call to action, which is down here, this 20 to play. There are 20 different mini games to play. You got to go play them all. That's the call to action, and that is the Act 3, and that's generally how they do it. So they introduce a concept, kind of get specific about what specific things that or what specific problems that concept addresses, and then they'll say, now it's your turn, go do it. And I mean, this is a video game trailer. They want you to go play it. They want you to buy it. So this is the call to action. Say, hey, you want to do that, right? Yeah. All right. Well, then go buy the game. All right. Let's go to the next one.
Even have additional difficulty levels that
and this is also part of the call to action.
Try them to see what your system can do.
Try them to see what your system can do. They're actively inviting you to engage and unlock those other mini games and do those other things. This is, again, the call to action. Play the game, and that's generally how this works.
Now we've arrived at the right Joy-Con 2.
Okay, so we're still in Act 2, but here's where I want you to take note of something. In Nintendo's overview trailers, what they will generally do is they will generally focus on 3 game features. I pointed this out in the Mario Kart World trailer as well. They'll pick 3 different game features that they'll want to focus on. Nintendo works on a rule of 3s, which basically says ideas are best presented in groups of 3. It shows a lot more intentionality. We can actually do a separate video on rule of 3s because it happens a lot in trailers and just storytelling in general, but I think it's probably beyond the scope of what we're doing here. But just know, Nintendo will a lot of times do things in groups of 3. So right now we're getting into the second feature of the Switch 2, which is going to be the facts and trivia. But before we get into that, watch where we start.
Here, you can learn about the system's magnetic connectors. Let's take a peek.
Okay, so we're kind of going back to this idea of what's the problem? Well, on the right Joy-Con, what we do is we learn about magnetic connectors, which kind of gives, again, this is Act 1. What are we doing? Well, we're learning about hardware, and this is going to establish the question in the audience's mind. Okay, magnetic connectors, that's not mini games. That's not features. That's like a specific physical thing. And then we get into this, which is going to be the start of Act 2, where it's going to start explaining, okay, what does that mean when we go into hardware? What does that mean?
By the gap. If you look closely between the Switch 2 console and Joy-Con 2 controller, you'll see a small space. Welcome Tour can teach you the reason why the gap exists. You can uncover facts and secrets about the back of the dock, the console screen, and many more details of the Switch 2. From basic features to deeper technical details, there are over 170.
Okay, so now we kind of know what we're doing. What's the problem, or what's the idea here? Who are we? What are we doing? We are reading information about the Switch 2. There are a bunch of facts that you can discover, which is, fairly boring for a lot of people probably, but they're going into detail because, again, we need to know exactly what we can do here. Then we're going to go into the Act 2, which is, what's the problem? What's the challenge here?
Deeper technical details. There are over 170 secrets to explore.
So there's 170 secrets to explore. That's a problem. So now it's not just, hey, we put a bunch of technical information here for you. It's, you got to look for it. There's 170 secrets. I think that word secrets is very intentional, to explore. It's that emphasis on exploration of the console, which, again, we saw at the very beginning.
Once you've learned all about a topic.
And now we get to the call to action. So what are we doing? We're reading about information of the system. What's the problem? They're hidden all over the place. So you've got to get to 170 different places and explore them. And what can you do with that information once you're done? It's the call to action. We can take quizzes. So this is what you can do, user, in order to do that. So this is the Act 3 part of it. And again, this is a pretty short part of the trailer, but it still has that Act 3 structure. So we're going to keep going and let it finish. Boom. And now we're out of the second act of Act 2, if you will, because again, Nintendo likes to do things in rules of 3. So we've gotten 2 features. We've gotten mini games, and then we've gotten facts and trivia. And now we're going to go into the third feature of the trailer, which again is the third part of Act 2.
It's another stamp.
And notice we've come back to the stamp idea. It's interesting to me that they didn't feel like the stamps was a big enough feature to have its own little section, so they kind of peppered it in here. They wanted to get it in there because this is a fun part of the experience, I guess, but they kind of broke it up.
Look at that. We found all the stamps in the right Joy-Con too. Now we can move to the next area. By climbing down this ladder, you can go inside the Joy-Con 2 controller.
Now, we're now going to get into Act 3, but I want to point out, because they've used the stamps as kind of a lead to kind of transition between things, now I know some new information about the stamps that I can only get to the next portion of the Joy-Con controller, or the next portion of whatever the experience is, whether it's the controller or the camera or whatever, after I get all the stamps in the current area. So now we know the stamps are a progression gate, which is something that we didn't know before, and they've delivered new information without having to devote an entire section to it. They just kind of integrated it into kind of a transitional element for whatever it is. So I thought that was an interesting little note. Nintendo's really pretty good at that, at just throwing little tidbits in there, just as little transitional elements. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Those that watch the Metroid Prime 4 trailer, the Samus can use her mind to open doors, or whatever that line was.
These powers allow Samus to operate mechanisms and to open doors.
Sometimes it's dumb. In this case, it's not. I think they did a pretty good job. So we're going to go into Act 3.
These cube-shaped booths placed throughout the exhibit allow you to experience the unique technology that powers Switch 2.
Okay. So what we're doing here is we're going to go inside the controller. Now, the interesting thing is we're now figuring out and looking at hardware, but from a technical and application-based level. And you don't really see, or she doesn't really say that much. But by doing this and kind of seeing, okay, we're going to go inside the controller, you kind of already understand that this is going to be a little bit more technical, and then you see this little demo cube right here. You kind of get that Act 1 information, the what are we doing, just visually. So you don't necessarily have to tell the audience with a voiceover, hey, this is what's happening, if you can show it. And I think they did a pretty good job showing it here, because we're already familiar with kind of what we're looking at. We know what the quiz thing is, we know what the ladders are, we know what all this other stuff is, but what we haven't seen yet is this little demo cube, so it kind of calls attention to itself. Because it's different than anything else we've seen before. So that's generally what our Act 1 is, and now we're going to go into our problem statement, which is Act 2.
Booths throughout the exhibit allow you to experience the unique technology that powers Switch 2. This tech demo is where you can experience super resolution, technology that helps display lower quality images with greater detail and clarity.
So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, this is Act 2. This is what allows you to experience tech demos. This is where we, again, are going to see that Rule of Threes pop up. We just saw that super resolution example.
Booths show off the system's 3D audio.
3D audio.
Or use HD Rumble 2 to simulate the feeling of objects rolling around inside a pair of maracas.
And then we have the maracas, the shaking. And then we have Act 3, which is the call to action, which is very similar to our minigames call to action. There's 14 tech demos to experience. We want you to do them all.
Video tour can't convey. Seeing and feeling is believing.
So seeing and feeling is believing. So in order for you to actually understand what's going on, you want to get in here and you want to see it and you want to feel it. And how can you feel it? Well, you can buy the Welcome Tour demo, and then you can use your Joy-Con to feel whatever they want you to feel. The idea is it's an experience. That's what they're really trying to sell here. They're not trying to sell a story. They're trying to sell an experience for you as a user. The call to action is come in here, play these 14 tech demos, and you'll experience something you've never experienced before. We're going to go into Act 3 with that in the audience's mind, that, okay, this is all about the physical experiences that I can touch and those sorts of things. And so with that in mind, listen to this last voiceover and see what they're actually trying to get you to do.
This video just scratches the surface. But you're invited to explore every inch of the exhibit as you look, touch, and feel your way through. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour launches exclusively on Nintendo Switch 2 June 5th, only on Nintendo eShop.
Okay, so there you go. That's Act 3. Like I said, Act 1 and Act 3 are generally the shortest of the entire trailer, but this is definitely Act 3, and I can go through it pretty quickly to kind of show you guys what the different things are. All right, so again, we've just finished talking about the experiences you can have. What do we go with to start Act 3? We go with a gameplay demo. And it's not just like this guy running, it's him actively doing stuff. We're communicating that idea that this is, it's more than just walking around the system and talking to things. Because if you watch, it's going across the that cord with that texture. It's going across this fan that's moving, right? Because a lot of the stuff that we'd seen before is static, and so this adds to that textural feel of what we're going to be doing here. And then he's skating and slips on the screen. That's, again, not a moment they had to show, but again, we're talking about feeling and experiencing and trying to tap into the sensory element of what our audience is going to experience by doing this. And everybody has had that experience of skating and slipping and falling on their butt. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to grab experiences that the audience is already familiar with and interact with them through all 5 of their senses, not just their eyes and their ears, but also their touch. And it's trying to create a visceral experience because that's what they want you to walk away with from here. They want you to walk away with, hey, this isn't just looking at audio and video on a screen. This is going to be something you're going to feel. This is going to be something you're going to experience.
This video just scratches the surface.
All right, so Act 1. What are we doing here? Well, this video, just what you just saw, what you just felt, just scratches the surface. And I think the choice of the word scratch is poignant, because scratching, if you're scratching the surface, well, that's a physical action that revolves around touch. I think that's a very intentional choice of words there. That's the answering the what question. What are we doing here? So that's the Act 1 question.
But you're invited to explore every inch of the exhibit.
And you're invited to explore every inch of the exhibit. That's the problem. The problem is we're inviting you to come in and explore every inch of this thing. So there's a ton to find, and you've got a lot of work to do. That's the problem that they're establishing here in Act 2 of Act 3.
You look, touch, and feel your way through.
You need to look, touch, and feel your way through. That's the call to action. Again, that rule of threes. We're going to establish where we are, then establish the problem, then do a call to action. Boom. Now we're through the end of Act 3, and we're just going to see a little bit of gameplay.
Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour launches exclusively on Nintendo Switch 2, June 5th.
And now we're going to tell people, now here's how you can have that experience. And that's generally how this thing is set up. The cool thing is here, that this is probably the most structurally clear trailer I think that I've done yet, where you can really see that Nintendo has a structure and they have a pattern, they have a formula. Generally, they have a 3-act structure overall for the entire thing, and you can kind of see that, but even within those individual acts, they also follow a rule of threes. Which I find fascinating, and I think that's probably what I'm going to find as I go through a lot of these overview trailers. Now, I think this is very specifically calculated, and it's specifically applicable to the overview trailers, and it's an interesting type of trailer, because I'm used to doing a lot of narrative stuff. And narrative stuff, again, does 3-act structures and those sorts of things. And generally in narrative, there's 2 different types of trailers. There's teasers and there's trailers. And I got into this a little bit in the last one. But trailers generally have a 3-act structure like we've talked about, and you guys are probably tired of hearing about. Teasers generally they're telling the story of an emotion, and they kind of end in the middle of Act 2. They don't really give you a call to action. They just kind of tell you where are we and what's the problem, and then kind of just let you marinate with it, so that you have feelings about it, but you don't really know what you can do about it. It makes you want to go back for more. Basically, you're leaving the question open-ended. That's what teasers do. What this kind of overview trailer is, this is a little bit different, because it kind of over-explains things a little bit. And I think you got to do that for something like a video game, because you got to know, establish in the audience's mind, like, why am I doing this? Why do I want to buy this? Why do I want to play this? What is this experience going to be? And so I'm starting to kind of get this idea that there is a third type of trailer, and I learn things by doing these things too. And for the moment, I'm going to call it an educational trailer. And as we go, we may kind of evolve our verbiage a little bit and kind of do this as we discover this stuff together. But I am learning through this too, and I think this is a lot of fun. So that said, that's the breakdown and the overview of the trailer itself. I'm going to go back to my chair, and we're just going to do a little wrap up, and we'll talk about the next video and see what happens. So that was the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour trailer. I think this one was really interesting because, again, it's not really a traditional game. This isn't something that you would normally make a trailer for, although I have to say, Nintendo has their formula and they stuck to it, and I feel like they did a pretty good job of communicating what this thing is. Now, I wouldn't say for me it was the most interesting trailer ever, but I don't know how you could really make this a trailer on the level of like Mario Kart World or Metroid Prime or Breath of the Wild or one of those really exciting trailers they've had, because the software itself is different. When you edit trailers, you do have to take into account, what am I editing a trailer for? What is the purpose of it? And I think you've got to take into account in this case that the purpose was more education than hype. And I think that's really okay for what this is. Now, will it help it sell more? I don't know. I downloaded it myself. I haven't played it yet because I wanted to do this video first and really kind of get an idea of what it is that I'm being sold before I actually play the game. And when I do these trailer videos, I do try to analyze the trailer before I play the game, just so that I can kind of get the full effect of what are they trying to communicate to me. So I'm looking forward to going and checking it out. But what did you guys think? Do you guys think it's a good trailer? Do you think it looks boring? Do you think it should be free? Tell me down in the comments. But next time we'll do a trailer that's probably a little bit more narrative based and a little bit more maybe exciting than this one. But again, I think this one's going to be really educational for us as we break things down, and I think I'm probably going to keep referring back to it because it's a really, really good template for how Nintendo seems to like to communicate and educate their audience. So that'll about do it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. That really helps the channel. We're really trying to grow and get towards that 2,000 subscriber mark so that we can get more content and keep this going and grow this thing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.